Today, I'm cooking a delicious smoked meatloaf on the kettle. Now, I know meatloaf is supposed to be a quick and easy weekday meal where you just throw a bunch of random ingredients, already made ingredients, or even raw ingredients. However, on the next one, put just a little bit of extra effort and it'd be totally worth your time, believe me. A lot of people like my wife aren't fans of baked meatloaf, but she absolutely loves it when it's smoked. So if you're a fan, I highly suggest you give this recipe a try. You won't regret it. Let's cook up a sauce mixture. I'm dicing up half an onion and dicing up half a bell pepper. This is optional, but I'm adding half of a serrano. Now if you don't like spice, don't add it in. Next I'm adding a heaping tablespoon of tomato paste, 3 cloves of minced or pressed garlic. I'm also going to be dropping in some beef broth. I'm going to add about 1/4 cup. You want to thin it out a little bit. You'll want that pasta sauce consistency. Next, I'm gonna drop a little bit of chorizo. Well, not a whole lot. I don't want to overpower the beef flavor. This was a little less than 1/4 of those chorizo tubes you get at the store. You can use the rest of it for breakfast and eggs the next day. Let's cook down our ingredients. Next, I'm gonna keep adding a little beef broth to maintain a little tomato sauce consistency. Most recipes call for adding spaghetti sauce or even ketchup, but making your own sauce takes a little effort, but it's totally worth your time. Speaking of putting in a little effort, a great way to elevate your meatloaf is to grind your own meat. Now, grinding your own meat and coming up with different blends will instantly make your meatloaf a lot better. I use this chuck roast here, but I would imagine adding brisket or short rib would produce some outstanding results. I'll have to experiment a little later. Also, if you want a review on the meat grinder I'm using, please click on this info tab in the corner. I'm also going to drop a link in the description. Once your sauce has cooled down a bit, let's get our ingredients together. I have 2 pounds of freshly ground chuck here, which I'll start adding some fresh ground pepper. I'm adding about 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. And I'm going to be using 2 teaspoons of Oakland Dust beef rub. Now, depending on the salt content on your rub that you're going to use, you might not want to drop additional kosher salt, or at least limit the amount of rub you're using. I'm also adding 3 tablespoons of W sauce. Half a cup of breadcrumbs, and 2 eggs that I beat off screen. And once our delicious sauce that we made earlier has cooled down, let's add it in and give it a good mix. Be sure all the ingredients are nicely blended together. In a separate pan, you'll want to line it with plastic wrap and drop in our meat mixture. Be sure to fill in all crevices. Oops, I almost forgot the magic ingredient. I forgot to add the cheese. I'm using Oaxaca cheese and I just went ahead and buried a bit in the meat. You could also use mozzarella here if you don't have access to Oaxaca cheese, but whatever cheese you use, just make sure it melts nicely. Alternatively, you can also cube up and add it during the mixing, but like I mentioned, I totally forgot, but this is gonna work just fine. Let's place this in the freezer so it firms up a bit while I get this grill started. Lighting up half a chimney of charcoal, dropping in some unlit charcoal on the slow and sear. And once lit, I'll drop them over the unlit charcoals and let them come up to temperature. For easy transport, I'm gonna place the loaf on top of this rack. Be sure to spray it with oil so it doesn't stick. Don't be a goofball like me here, because I forgot to spray it. I'm gonna drop in some more seasoning to top it off because I love the color. Before we start cooking, I should mention the inspiration to create this video. Now, in a recent live chat, this was requested by my good friend Ruben over at Matt Swine Backyard Barbecue. So I figured I'd make it. So Ruben, this one's for you. Once we finish seasoning the meatloaf and our grill is up to temperature, let's start cooking. Let's place it in our meatloaf and cover it up. The cooking plan is as follows. Smoke the meatloaf between 275 and 300, and around 155 to 160 we'll sauce. We'll make sure to remove the meatloaf once it reaches 165 degrees and the salt has set nicely. I forgot to mention, about the hour mark, I'll also rotate the meatloaf for more even color. So far, it looks amazing. But enough looking and salivating, let's cover and keep cooking. Once the meatloaf reaches 160, I'm gonna sauce. I'm also using the Oakland Dust barbecue sauce. This has a wonderful spiciness to it and I enjoy it very much. This meatloaf is looking really good. Okay, I got caught drooling again, so it's time to cover and let finish. It won't take very long to get to 165, and once it reaches this temperature, let's remove and let it rest for 10 minutes. Make sure to always rest before slicing. This wire rack made moving the loaf around infinitely easier. But my rookie mistake of not spraying the rack with oil caused it to stick a little bit, and ultimately forced me to slice the meatloaf on the rack. No worries though, let's slice. And let's get one of these wonderful slices out. Look at that beautiful smoke ring, and that melted cheese is calling my name. Let's get a taste.
A little bit of the cheese there, a little bit of that barbecue sauce. Cheers. That's a winner. That meatloaf was delicious. A little bit on the spicy side, but fantastic. Make this.
Smoked meatloaf has become one of my favorite things to smoke on my kettle. Want to know what else I'm a big fan of? Some chuck roast burnt ends. So be sure to check out that video next.